Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Above the Rim Rundown, where we run down all things NBA. I am one of your hosts, Memo, and today I've got Hoops with me. What's up, dude?
What's going on, man? How you doing?
I'm doing all right. Have spring break currently. It's towards the end, but I've been enjoying that. And yeah, a lot of video games, a lot of watching TV. I just finished up Invincible since the last episode of the season was released this week, and it was amazing. It's such a great show. So yeah, watch that. Watch some basketball. Some women's basketball as well. Um, uh, with the tournament going on, so I've been enjoying my little break. How have you been?
Overall, I've been also doing pretty good. I would say overall, not much different for the most part. Just the same daily routine. Work has been pretty much the same as usual. Sometimes busy, sometimes not as busy. And then aside from that, pretty much just trying to find ways to stay entertained, shall we say. Been watching a little bit of basketball myself. NBA, a little bit of March Madness also. Here and there, a little bit for both women's and men. Um, but I'm not gonna lie, honestly, I feel like the women's games have been a little bit more entertaining than the men's games. And aside from that, for the most part, just trying to get through life, shall we say. Um, I think that as we are getting pretty close to the playoffs for the NBA season, exciting down the stretch, especially how tight the Western Conference is. Definitely going to be interesting. East, not as interesting because like you already know who the one seed is going to be, and it's not even close. Um, but then the others, there are some tight races. Like for example, the race for second, third, fourth, or like the play-in teams, like seventh seed, eighth seed. But definitely should be pretty interesting these next final 2 weeks of the regular season.
Yeah, we're almost there. We're almost to playoff basketball, which is very exciting. And because of that, we are gonna do something I think is pretty fun, and predict the NBA awards and all the NBA teams um, in this episode. We actually did this at the very beginning, or the very first episode of our podcast. We did a very early predictions video on uh, focusing mainly just the NBA awards. We didn't choose the All NBA teams, defensive teams, rookie teams, but yeah, we'll reveal our current predictions and then talk about our past predictions as well. I think it's gonna be fun, and yeah, again, we have just a couple weeks, so I think this is a good time to talk about it since the NBA season is about to wrap up. And since it is about to wrap up, you guys better tune in. You guys better follow, subscribe because we're locking in. Like we took a break, we took a small break, but we are locking in because it's playoff basketball. It's there's gonna be a lot of stuff to talk about, a lot of debating, a lot of just fun topics to talk about. So make sure you subscribe. Make sure you're following on uh, podcast platforms like Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And yeah, I think I'm ready to talk about some awards. How was the process for you for picking these awards? I know we kind of just did it together right before we recorded. So, was it easy for you? What parts were more challenging? What do you think?
I think definitely some easier than others, some a little bit more challenging than others. Um, I think that one of the more challenging parts about the awards was more so the teams versus the individual awards. Individual awards wasn't really that challenging, honestly. I feel like most of them, the winner is pretty transparent, but maybe like honorable mentions is where like you think outside the box a little bit. But I think that, for example, all NBA teams, defensive teams, and rookie teams, one of the more challenging parts of making those lists is when there's a lot of good players that play the same position. For example, like defensive players, if there's like multiple that are from the center position, the tricky part is trying to think about like possibly flexing, or if you really want to decide who's first team, who's second team. So those were a little bit challenging. Overall, I think that's what makes these videos fun. So um, definitely trying to think outside the box the best I could was one of the strategies I took when coming up with these predictions.
Yeah, honestly, same. I feel like the individual awards I found a lot easier to figure those out. It's the teams that were difficult, especially when we had to consider the 65 game rule that they implemented this season. It made things tricky, um, and I'll be honest, like for like the rookie teams, like I don't know if that applies for rookies. So um, some of these players might not be eligible, but I really don't know. But it is what it is, and hopefully we did our best. I think I did my best. I think I have a good predictions across the board, especially comparing it with the early predictions from before the season even started. Like it's funny to look over what I said in the past, what you said in the past, and see like how the season actually turned out. So I guess if you're ready, we could start, and we'll start with probably the most boring award, which is Coach of the Year. Before you reveal your Coach of the Year, who did you think was gonna win Coach of the Year before the season started?
Yeah, so looking back at our predictions we made in the beginning of the season, which happened to be episode 1 of our podcast, I believe the main candidate that I picked was Mike Dagno for or Mark Dagno for OKC, and turns out that was a pretty good prediction because OKC has been, I guess, not that shockingly played pretty well this season because a lot of people thought that they were going to make the playoffs. Maybe the shocking part is people didn't necessarily think that there would be a top 3 seed, maybe. I mean, maybe that. But I think that that one was a good prediction that a lot of people had thought about, knowing that OKC's rise was definitely inevitable. Um, how about you, Memo? Do you remember who your prediction was in the beginning of the season?
Unfortunately, I do. I went with my dark horse pick for um, this award because I mentioned Mark as one of my honorable mentions, as well with Joe Mazzulla, Jamal Mosley. Jamal Mosley is definitely a good honorable mention, but my dark horse pick was Quinn Snyder. I thought he really was gonna turn around the Hawks season, implement that defense that he was advocating for at the beginning of the season, and that did not occur. That's the Hawks sucked this year, so there was no way Quinn Snyder was gonna win this award. So I was very wrong, but you were spot on. My like official prediction to who's gonna win is Mark Dagnott. I think you're right that a lot of people assume that the OKC Thunder were gonna improve this year, but nobody really thought they would be top 3, maybe even top of the conference, which is definitely a possibility. Still, they could definitely take the first seed. And yeah, I think Mark did a great job with those players. I think yeah, they surprised us all, and that's usually how this award works. It's usually like the biggest surprise team gets the if you're coaching the biggest surprise team, you're gonna win this award. So yeah, I think it's going to Mark, and you would agree, right? Like that's your official prediction.
Yeah. Mark Dagnall was also my prediction to win the Coach of the Year. Um, Speaking of which, by chance, do you have any honorable mentions for Coach of the Year?
I mean, I mentioned Jamal Mosley, and
He's good.
what's his name? Finch, kind of
Yeah.
has a surprise team
Well,
as well.
Chris Finch would be my honorable mention. Honestly, I feel like those two could be neck and neck. One of those two could win. Maybe it'll be Chris. Maybe it'll be Mark. Depends on. Maybe it depends where these two teams finish in the standings. Um, Both of those teams are have been pretty shocking. I mean, like I don't think anyone really thought OKC or the Timberwolves would be top three in Western Conference, and here they are. So honestly, I feel like it could be a toss up between those two. But at the end of the day, if I were to pick one, I would definitely just stick with Mark Agno. Honestly,
Yeah, same. But shout out to Finch
I do.
because he was able to get that team that was very disappointing last year. He was able to make it work with Gobert, Towns, and so shout out to him for sure.
Yeah, but I do like your prediction for Jamal Mosley as well. He definitely also is another coach that a team that probably wasn't expected to do much to end up doing a lot better. Right now, the Magic is the fourth seed in the East, if I'm not mistaken. Definitely, I would say overachieving. So, yeah, another impressive team there.
For sure. Are we done with coach talk? Should we move on?
Yeah, I think we're good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's move on to rookie of the year then, which, uh, it's a landslide for me. Honestly, like I'll mention the I'll be nice. I'll mention some honorable mentions, like Chet Holmgren, um, Brandon Miller. Nobody really has been talking about Brandon Miller, but he's been amazing for the Hornets. But it's Wemby. It's easily Wemby in my opinion. Like, uh, I've definitely out of the two of us, I've been like the biggest like Wemby glazer. Like I've been the one that's been like
Hey,
talking
at least
about
you admit it.
Wemby. Yeah, yeah, I'll admit it. Like I've been like rooting for this guy, and I get hyped so easily with everything he does, and with good reason. Like he's doing stuff that a lot of players have not done. He's like one of the best rookies of all time. He's up there with um like the Tim Duncans, the LeBron's rookie years. Like he's incredible. Like he had a did he have a 5x5 this year? I believe so. He almost had like a quadruple double recently. Like he has crazy stat lines, and it's just his rookie year. Like he's just gonna get better from here. So I expect a lot of big things from him, and to me, like he's easily rookie of the year.
Yeah, I agree. Not that big of a debate. If there were any runner ups, it would have to be Chet. But I just don't think it's enough to really rival the pick of Wemby. Obviously, both of those players, their body frames are similar and their play style are similar. At the end of the day, Wemby just put up a lot more dominating performances and numbers. I think that you can't really pick anyone but him. So without a single debate, Victor Wembanyama, the winner of Rookie of the Year.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but that's who you predicted to win Rookie of the Year before the season started, right?
Yeah, I feel like it was the no-brainer pick for like pretty much everyone.
Yeah, it was definitely the safe pick. I definitely mentioned that at the beginning of the season, and he proved us right. He played like the safe pick. Like he played like the rookie of the year throughout the whole season. There was some debate in like the middle of the season with Chet, but like after their like face offs and just Wemby's crazy stat lines, it became clear that it's not Chet's award.
True that.
I will say, like, what are your thoughts on players that was drafted before but got injured? Like, uh, it's technically their second season, but since they didn't play the first season, they're eligible for the rookie awards. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
I'm gonna say this. It's kind of, I guess, like it's kind of conflicting because yes, it is their first real season playing the game because they never actually played in this their real rookie season due to injury. At the same time, like yeah, it is true they're not really true rookies, so kind of like asterisk ish. Like obviously one of the prime examples was Blake Griffin. His supposed to be rookie season, he got injured in the preseason. He didn't get to play in the regular season that year. So then his rookie season was counted the following year, and John Wall got robbed of Rookie of the Year just because of Blake Griffin. Man, I mean, it's unfortunate when that happens, but I guess it makes sense. Like they didn't actually play the first year. Now, I feel like that one, the Blake Griffin one, was a lot more controversial because his makeup rookie season was when he actually won the Rookie of the Year. Versus for Chet, this is his counted rookie season. He's probably not gonna win it, so it's not as controversial. At the end of the day, though, although it is a little bit controversial, I think it does make sense that they count it as their rookie season. The first year that they actually get to play, just because they didn't get to play in the first year, so it's kind of unfair. But definitely a little bit controversial for sure. Um, what are your thoughts, Memo? You have any like say you think that it should carry over as a real rookie year if they didn't play it all the first year, or it shouldn't count as a rookie year anymore?
I'll say I agree with you. I feel like it is weird. Like part of me feels like
Mm-hmm.
it shouldn't count, but it kind of makes sense. Like it kind of sucks for the rookies that do get injured, but then
Yeah,
like you're taking the spotlight of the current rookies. So,
yeah,
um yeah, I don't know. It's definitely a tricky situation, but uh yeah, I don't know. It's weird. It's definitely weird, but it is what
yeah,
it is, I guess.
yeah. I agree. And obviously, it is really unfortunate when those top players get injured in their rookie year and then they can't play. But yeah, unfortunately, part of the game, nature of the game. At the end of the day, I guess it makes sense the carry over to when they first actually play.
Right.
So now that we've made it pretty clear and obvious that Wemby is our pick for Rookie of the Year, shall we move on to our next award?
Yeah, which would be sixth man of the year. Um, I think this was easy for me to pick a winner, but honestly, like I don't know, it's like an award that I didn't really care about too much. But for
Mm-hmm.
me, like the ultimate, like my official, like final pick would be Malik Monk. He is currently injured, but he did make the 65 games. I think he played like 72 games this season. So he did make it, and he was definitely a scoring threat off the bench for the Kings, and that's basically what you look for this award is someone that can give you an offensive punch off the bench, and that's what Malik Monk did. He's had some great high scoring games off the bench, and yeah, I think it will go to him. Before the season started, though, I thought it would go to Bobby Portis. He's always been like in the sixth man of the year talks. I thought he would finally win it this year, and he's had some good games off the bench, some big games this season, but I don't think it was really talked about a lot, especially with like how weird the Bucks season was. I think that just his play went under the radar. So ultimately, I will be going with Malik Monk.
Feel you. And I would have to agree. I also picked Malik Monk to win Sixth Man of the Year. I believe in the beginning of the season predictions, I also thought it would be Bobby Portis. And as you mentioned, he is having a pretty good season still. His performance has gone a little bit under the rug, and I'm sure a lot of that has to do with like, the Bucks. One hell of a drama roller coaster season. At the moment, they still are the second seed, but you know what happened. They fired Adrian Griffin when they were the second seed, and that was really shocking. And perhaps even more shocking was who they replaced him with, Doc Rivers. And after they got Doc Rivers, I believe their record is like barely 500. Maybe it's even below 500 now. Um, but like they had a better record with Adrian Griffin than Doc Rivers, so kind of questionable move there. Obviously, like the narratives say that I believe the reason they fired him is because he lost the locker room and the Bucks defensive efficiency went down a lot from last season. But yeah, Doc hasn't really been much better, if at all.
Yeah,
So we'll see what happens.
I'll tell you what. Doc Rivers is now winning Coach of the Year. That's for sure.
Oh, that's like the most
Impossible.
obvious statement ever. Yeah, he's not going to. If anything, he might win the award for worst hire of the year of like all the coaches that were hired like last off season or mid season. Yeah. Um but yeah, I believe that definitely Malik Monk would be the winner of Sixth Man of the Year. And for my honorable mentions, I brought up Norman Powell and Tim Hardaway Jr. But ultimately, I think it has to be Malik Monk.
Norman Powell is a good pick. Not gonna lie, he definitely helped out the Clippers, especially when they were like actually doing good. Uh, Off the
Yeah,
bench, he did help out, so that's a good pick. I didn't really have honorable mentions again. It's not
yeah,
an award that I really cared about, but
mhm,
that's a good pick.
for sure. All right. I believe Sixth Man of the Year, because that's an award that's not as interesting, we can move on to the next award. And what shall that be? Maybe Clutch Player?
We could do clutch player. Um,
Yeah. Another one that's like not necessarily a super exciting award to talk about, but you do need clutch players to help you win games.
yeah,
Um,
it's a new award, so it's definitely kind
I
of
forget about it honestly.
yeah. You forget about it. You like don't think about who is the clutchest player currently in the league, so it's definitely hard to think about and talk about um,
Hmm.
because it's not something you pay attention to. But after some consideration, I decided to go with DeMar DeRozan. I think he is the odd favorite at the moment. The Bulls have played a lot of clutch games this season. I think they have like 40 plus like clutch games, which means like I think the last 5 minutes of the fourth quarter, they're within like 5 points with the opponents. I think that's like the NBA definition of it, and they have a winning record when it comes to clutch games. If I I don't think I have the stat up anymore, which is a shame. But yeah, DeMar DeRozan, like he always comes through in the fourth quarter. He's had some clutch shots as well, and you know what I thought was funny is when this award came out last year for the first time. I thought, man, it kind of sucked that they didn't start it the year before because the year before that was when DeMar DeRozan was having like game winners like every week. So
Yeah, I remember that.
I'm glad that he was able to be pretty clutch again this season. And yeah, now I do believe that he deserves to win it this year. A runner up would be Steph. Like Steph definitely has to carry the Warriors, um, especially in the fourth quarter. So he's had not a lot of big shots. In fact, like he's missed a lot of game winners this season. So that's why I chose DeMar over Steph. But in the fourth quarter, he does like help out the Warriors a lot. So I guess he would be my honorable mentions. But my official pick is DeMar DeRozan, and I think my prediction for before the season started was Jimmy Butler, because Jimmy Butler's the type of guy that would do anything for a win. But I forgot he usually does that in the playoffs, not the regular season. He kind of just coasted during the regular season, didn't really do anything impressive. So you better bring it in the playoffs because it's gonna be embarrassing if he doesn't. Um, but yeah, he was my prediction winner, or my prediction before the season started. Looking back at it, it's kind of a silly pick. But yeah, I'm officially going with DeMar DeRozan. What about you?
For sure, not bad, not bad. This one was definitely a toss up for me. And really, it was a toss up between the two guys you mentioned, DeMar DeRozan and Steph Curry. Um, at the end, it was kind of hard for me not to pick Steph, just because of all of those clutch time games that the Warriors have been in this season. A lot of close games, and after thinking about it, I did realize that Steph did miss a lot of clutch shots too. Um, I just feel like ultimately I picked him because without Steph on without Steph, Warriors would like for sure be a lottery team. Um, and obviously they started the year really bad. They were practically about to be a lottery team with Steph playing. Um, I think that part of the huge reason why the Warriors turned their season around, like post All Star break, was due to the great play of Steph. And I think he deserves a great debate for this award too. I thought about picking him for sure. I think that also in the sense that it just seems like the Bulls are not a bad team. They I mean obviously they're below 500, but they have been winning like a good amount of games lately, and I'm pretty sure it is because of DeMar DeRozan's play. I just feel like because the Warriors are have been winning more, and a lot of it has been to do with Steph's clutch time moments. It was hard for me not to pick him. But ultimately speaking, I think this was a really close one. I think, but I could definitely argue for DeMar. I said that I predicted Luka to win it, to do a lot of clutch moments because like this season they've been like a lot better than last year. So a lot of their wins, at least lately, have been need to do as much of the carry. I think that definitely Steph Curry or DeMar DeRozan, but if I were to pick one, I would go with Steph.
Honestly, I thought you said Damian Lillard. Uh,
I don't recall who I mentioned as the number one option. It was one of those two guys. I feel like Dame definitely had like a few more clutch moments this season.
yeah,
Like he made a few game winners, right?
I
It
could
might
remember the one where I
yeah.
remember that one.
Actually, Yeah, actually, maybe I did say Dame as my fault. That was a not a bad pick, honestly.
At the time,
At the
for
end of
sure,
the
it
day,
was not a bad pick.
yeah. At the end of the day, though, I think definitely Steph Curry.
All right, so this is the first award where we both have different opinions on who's gonna win it. So it's gonna be
Hmm.
interesting to find out um, who actually wins it, and we'll definitely like update you all like when time comes, who wins all these awards and who's in these teams, like all NBA defensive rookie teams, when that is released. But as for now, let's move on to most improved player of the year. And I feel like for this season, it was a two-man race, but I feel like one is like a little more obvious. At least to me personally, I know a lot of people think the other person is gonna win it, but to me, I think it's obvious that Tyrese Maxey is gonna be uh, the most improved player of the year because he jumped into that all star caliber player. Like people thought he had the potential of becoming an all star last year, but nobody really thought that he would be this good uh, this early in his career. Especially after the James Harden trade early this season, uh, Tyrese Maxey just automatically stepped up and started playing like the best guard that beat has Tyrese Maxey, but Kobe White definitely deserves a shout out. I think statistically he was kind of a bunch, so he's not good. So he's definitely an honorable mention, and I think my before the season prediction, I went with Austin Reeves. I thought Austin Reeves was gonna have a huge jump, and he started off pretty slow this season, but now he's like playing like last year, so he didn't really improve that much, honestly. But yeah, final prediction: Tyrese Maxey.
For sure, not bad. For me, I think that there were a few guys that I had a little bit of a hard time picking between because they had like really good jumps this year. And at the end of the day, I still slightly have like a bit of a toss up between these guys. But I think I will have to also go with Tyrese Maxey. And it's definitely because of the fact that his numbers did go up a lot. Granted that like Joel Embiid's injury did play a factor and James Harden being traded, all that stuff. But not to take away from what he has done, he's just been like he made a major jump this season. Sixers needed a guy to step up after losing their stars to either to by trade or injury, and he delivered. Granted, the Sixers haven't really been winning a lot. They've been losing a lot of games. They slipped a lot after Joel Embiid's injury, but that's not on Maxey. He did his part. So I have to agree. Definitely, I think Tyrese Maxey, the candidate for most improved. Um, his point average went up by 5 points, and so far this season, he has like his scoring from last season has gone up a lot, and only so far 6 more games played than he did last season. So definitely did really good there. Um, a few honorable mentions I mentioned for six man. I mean, no, not six man. Most improved. I did I did mention Scotty Barnes. He had a little bit of a down year sophomore season after his impressive rookie year. And this year, he's been looking more like the high potential we saw in his rookie season. I thought about picking him as my pick for the most improved, to be honest. At the end of the day, I just felt like what Maxi did was way too big of a jump for me not to pick him. Um, that being said, I do agree that Kobe White definitely also deserves the recognition. He jumped like drastically this year, and definitely one of those like more late boomer breakout seasons because he's already like year 5, and right now he's showing like he can really go off. And then I think that Alperen Şengün definitely was one guy who got better a lot. Obviously, he did get injured a little bit ago, so I don't know if he would even qualify for 65. Maybe I don't know how many games he'll have missed by then, but ultimately, I think he'll be one of those guys that would just like fall short regardless. But shout out to him. He did have a really good season as well. Um, I believe at the beginning of the season, I I believe I picked Austin Reeves as well. And as you mentioned, he's kind of just been like pretty much the same as last season. He still has been really good, just not to the point where he's like improved to a point where it's clear and obvious he would win this award. Um, but at the end of the day, I would say the pretty clear winner should be Tyrese Maxey.
Yeah, I think so. Um, yeah, I think we can move on to defensive player of the year. Um, yeah, I feel like there's only one answer, and it's Rudy Gobert. How many defensive players have of the year has he won already? 3.
In 2 or 3, I can't remember. Maybe 3.
Yeah, I think 3, and I think this is gonna be his fourth one. Because of like how surprising of a team the Minnesota Timberwolves have been, and the big part of the reason why they are so surprising and so good this season is because of their defense. I think Rudy Gobert is gonna get it because he is the anchor of their defense. Yeah, they have other great defensive players, but Rudy Gobert is that guy. And it's hard for me to admit that. Uh, Rudy Gobert is not the most likable guy, but
Agreed.
he definitely deserves this award. He is an elite shot blocker. People are afraid to drive into the lane because of him. And again, he has helped this team turn it around and become um, so elite defensively. They've been the number one defense all year. Um, I want to shout out a few players like Anthony Davis. I feel like it's weird that he has never won a defensive player of the year, and
It is.
and he I think he was my pick before the season started to win it, and he did amazing this year, honestly. Like
He
he
did.
he
Yeah.
played a lot of games. This was one of his best defensive seasons. Unfortunately, the Lakers in general are not like an elite defensive team like the Timberwolves. So I think that's the true reason why he is not gonna win it. But it's gonna suck. It's gonna be like the Tim Duncan situation where he's never won a defensive player of the year, even though it's Tim Duncan, one of the best defensive players of all time. I'm afraid that's gonna happen to Anthony Davis as well. Um,
It's possible.
yeah.
Hopefully not, but
Hopefully not, but I don't know. Wemby is already in
yeah.
the conversation for defensive
On
player
the
of the year.
horizon.
He's
Yeah.
on the horizon as a rookie. Um, so Wemby is definitely an honorable mention. Jared Allen is an honorable mention as well. Bam is always in the conversation, but ultimately, I think it's gonna be Rudy Gobert that's gonna win it.
Yeah. And I would have to agree with you. And also, I looked it up. Rudy Gobert has won 3 Defensive Player of the Years, and this will more than likely be his fourth. Yeah, I agree. Rudy Gobert definitely like. I'm not the hugest fan of the guy either, personally, but gotta give credit where it's due. He is one of the main reasons why the Timberwolves have been so good this season. And obviously, like, also huge credit to Ant and Cat Losing Cat was definitely really huge for the Timberwolves. Could end up lowering their chances of getting as far as they might hope. But they are still a really good team, even without him. And one of the main reasons is absolutely the defensive presence and shot blocking of Rudy Gobert. And I think that for sure he is the clear cut pick for Defensive Player of the Year. And runner ups, definitely Wemby, as you mentioned, crazy stat lines, um, a lot of blocks in several games. And then AD, shout out to him for one, staying healthy this year, proving all those narratives really wrong. And two, really good defensive presence. He also had several like multiple block games, and then also like obviously the impact he's had around the game in other areas like rebounding. His offense is pretty good still. Um, Shout out to AD for having a pretty good bounce back season. I mean, he did do good last year, but bounce back as in like being available. And I believe that unfortunately you might be right where he could have like a Tim Duncan situation where he doesn't win a Defensive Player of the Year when clearly he should have won like at least one, maybe even two. Hopefully we're wrong, but it's possible with all those other good defensive players in the league now. But at the end of the day, I do believe it is hard to pick anyone aside from Rudy Gobert. So I believe that definitely it will be him winning his fourth Defensive Player of the Year award.
All right, the moment has come. It's time to talk about the NBA MVP award, which I think we both have the same answer. I
Yeah.
think a lot of people who've watched the NBA have the same answer. But before we give like our final prediction, first of all, like who do you believe? Um, who are some honorable mentions that deserve to be shouted out?
So I believe some honorable mentions to start. Luca, I think he's an honorable mention. Having a really good season. Um, his team definitely got a lot better than last year too. After that disappointing finish, not even making the play-in tournament, definitely wasn't a good look. However, quite honestly, I think that one of the reasons why a lot of people don't think Luka's gonna win is because that the Mavericks are not a high enough seed, which like I think it's dumb, but like yeah,
Yeah, but I think
unfortunately that's
that's
how the voting works.
yeah, I think that's the reason why he's not gonna win it because other than that, like he's playing like the best player in the world right now. Like honestly, I feel
Yeah,
like it's him and Jokic that are like the two best in the world right now. And the
yeah.
only reason why Luka's not gonna win MVP is because the Mavs aren't good enough. I forgot the standings right now, but they're not in the
They
top
are
three
the
for sure.
yeah, they're the fifth seed in the West right now. Um, which is not bad by any means. It's just not good enough for this award, unless it was a out of the world performance like Russ when he did like the triple doubles record and whatnot. Unfortunately, not quite there. But yeah, Luca's the guy who I was rooting for, and I would like to see win the MVP award. But I'm afraid it won't happen because the Mavericks are not high enough seeding. Um, but another honorable mention that I had was Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. I think that he has been really good this season. Um, and though I feel like probably the pick is pretty obvious, maybe, just maybe, there could be slight hope for Shea. I don't know. Low key, I would be rooting for him to win it just because, like, the voter fatigue thing is kind of a thing. I mean, like, obviously last year, a lot of people kind of do agree that Joel Embiid won it because of the voters' fatigue. Honestly, I do agree because I do think that Jokic actually was the better player. And I'm afraid that probably Jokic will, in fact, be the winner this year because one, he just has been like the overall best player, and Denver, they still have a chance to get the 1 seed. Even if they get like the 3 seed, that's still quite good. So I feel like for sure the pick is going to be Nikola Jokic. And I assume that that would be the same pick for you. Am I right, Memo?
Yeah, it's for sure Nikola Jokic. It's just he's doing stuff that hasn't been done before at the center position. Um, I did a TikTok this week, kind of going after Gilbert Arenas for saying that Jokic is one of the worst MVPs of all time on a statistic standpoint, which is insane because like you can't name another center that averages basically a triple double who is a better playmaker than Jokic, whose advanced stats is unheard of. And yeah, he's freakishly consistent. Like he's having another amazing year. So yeah, he's gonna win it. If Joel Embiid wasn't injured, I think it would have easily gone to him though, which is funny because last year I felt like he didn't deserve it. Nicola deserved it. This year I felt
Yeah.
like Joel deserved it, but it's gonna go to Nicola, because Joel's injured. So it's kind of funny how that
Yeah,
ended up working, but
I know.
yeah, Jokic, I feel like he does deserve it. Shout out to Shea, but I don't know. I feel like he has to just keep this up in order to win the MVP. Like if he has another season like this, then he for sure will win it. Like not only is he an offensive threat, averaging like 31 points a game, like he's Mister 31, um, but defensively he's up there. Has like one of the best defensive players in the league, especially in the guard position. So he's doing it both ways, which it could be argued that Nikola Jokic is not doing, even though he's not like a cone out there, but still, he's not as great as a defensive player as Shea. I just feel like Shea has more time to win an MVP. I feel like he'll be able to win one, um, maybe as soon as next year. Who knows? But yeah, Shea was definitely an honorable mention for me. Luca, if it was up to me, I think I'd give it to Luca. Like this
I
man
agree.
is insane. Like he had 73 points this season in a single game. Like he has some crazy stat lines. He had like a streak of 30-point triple doubles too. Like I almost forgot about that.
I forgot about that also.
Like he is playing like the best player in the world, but his team is just not as good as the Nuggets or as good as OKC. So that's the
Yeah.
only reason why I think I don't know, he deserves more help because he deserves MVPs. Like it's gonna be weird if he doesn't have one MVP, which he definitely will get one in his career. I at least hope so. But it'll
Definitely.
definitely be weird if he doesn't have one or more than one. I feel like he's should be the type of player that will get multiple MVPs. But I don't want them to pull a Kobe on Luca and only give him one. Like
That'd be horrible.
he's like that guy. He's been playing like an
Yeah.
MVP almost since he got into the league. And yeah, he kind of deserves it, but his team is preventing him from actually winning the award, unfortunately. But yeah,
Yep.
official pick Nikola Jokic, and I am not proud to admit, but before the season started, I thought Jason Tatum was gonna be MVP, uh, just because I thought voter fatigue was gonna kick in, and nobody was gonna vote for Nikola Jokic or Joel Embiid during that part of or, like last year when I was like having these thoughts. I thought since the Boston Celtics were gonna have a great team this year, that uh, Jason Tatum was gonna win MVP because his team would be the clear best team in the league, and that is true. Like the Boston Celtics are the clear best, but it's not because Jason Tatum is having these like MVP numbers. He's playing like a superstar, but he's not playing like an MVP. He's not playing like that guy. You know,
Right.
he's just playing like a good player surrounded with a lot of other good players. And I thought it was funny seeing Boston Celtics fans cry about how Jason Tatum should be MVP. His numbers are down because his teammates are good. Like, that's the exact reason why we won't pick this guy, because his teammates are so
Exactly.
good. It's been like this since
Right.
he got into the league. His teammates have been so good. He's been so privileged. And instead of stepping up and leveling up over the years, he's been like good. He's been good, just not elite. And you need to
Right.
be elite to be an MVP, because
I
he's
agree.
not elite in anything. He's not an elite scorer. Like, he's not on Jokic's level offensively. He's not an elite defender like Shea. Uh, he's not an elite playmaker. God no. Like, he's not like Luka or Shea or Jokic on that front. Like, he's not elite in anything. He just has great teammates. So
I honestly cannot agree more with you with pretty much everything you said. First, like to start, obviously Jason Tatum is a really good player, but like people gotta keep in mind the Celtics roster is literally so well built. It's like he literally came into the league in a perfect situation. Instead of most rookies where or instead of most lottery rookie picks where they have to join a bad team and carry them up, for Jason Tatum, he just immediately joined a good team and it was smooth sailing from there. So yeah, definitely I agree that he is good, but he ain't like elite. And that's one of the reasons why I would not put him as an MVP. And granted, like your prediction wasn't necessarily a bad prediction because it definitely could have been possible. But I think we're both happy to admit that he would not be an MVP pick, especially as like Lakers fans and not the biggest Tatum fans in general. For me, at the beginning of the season, I remember I did predict Jokic would win it again just because, like, the best player in the world, you name it. But I did put Shea as a sleeper pick. And that aged pretty good.
yeah, that was a
And
good
there's a
call.
chance, yeah, there is a chance maybe he could end up winning it, but probably it will be Jokic. And no shame there. It's just like, top player in the league right now. Kind of hard to top him. But yeah, I think that will definitely be interesting to see as the time comes down. So I believe that will take us to the all NBA teams.
Correct. So we came up with all NBA teams for first, second, and third team. And again, it was difficult trying to come up with these teams because we have to keep in mind the 65 game rule. But, I tried my best. I'm sure you tried your best. So let's just
Oh yeah.
throw it out there and see if we're remotely close to when uh, these teams actually get revealed. So let's start from first team. Okay, I got Luca, Shea, Tatum, Jokic, Giannis. What do you have?
Exactly the same thing.
Nice.
As you mentioned, I also have Luca, Shea, Jason Tatum, Giannis, and Jokic.
All right, no complaints there. I guess. Like, I feel like
Hmm.
these
Yeah,
are
I feel like
locks for sure.
locks, the no-brainer top five players in the league
Yeah,
this
great
season.
players. They play for great teams. Um,
Yeah.
Even though I am a Tatum hater, I will admit that he does deserve first team. Not MVP,
Yeah.
but he deserves to be on first team.
Yeah, I agree. Unfortunately, it's too hard not to. I admit that.
Yeah. Okay, first team was easy. Second team and
Yeah.
third team was so difficult for me.
Oh yeah. Like
Uh,
I had a lot of up and down like I was thinking like this player deserves to be second team. But maybe this player deserves it a little bit more. Like yeah, it was challenging.
yeah. So I'll say my second team, and then I'm assuming they're gonna be different. So we'll see. But so we'll
Probably,
be
yeah.
able to talk about it. So for second team,
Okay.
I've got LeBron, Anthony Davis, Steph, Ant, and Katie.
Okay. Actually, my team is pretty close to yours, but there was really just like one difference, I think. And that being said, here's my second team. I had Jalen Brunson, Anthony Edwards, Kevin Durant, LeBron James, and Anthony Davis. So I think the key difference was Jalen Brunson versus Steph Curry.
Wait, so
And
Kevin Durant is in your second team as well?
yeah,
Okay, I thought it was kind of crazy for that, but I'm glad like we're on the same page there.
honestly, I I thought about putting Kawhi in second team, but then I
Yeah,
thought like KD's having a better season, kind of. I think. I
it's
don't.
hard.
It's
Like
debatable.
the West
Honestly,
is
like
so like close together that like it's
yeah,
hard to choose because KD's been an elite player when he's on the court, and he did make the 65 games. So that's why I ended up picking him because he is an offensive threat. But Kawhi
agreed.
has been really solid this year. Like he's actually
He
playing
has
games,
been.
which is awesome.
Yeah,
I
both
it's
both
just
of those.
hard to choose.
Yeah, both of those two guys who've been missing a lot of games recent years have been healthy, and that's definitely good to see. Like the top players in the league being on the court, get to see the top product. Like three of the like players that have been missing the most games, Kawhi, KD, and AD, were able to stay healthy this year.
Hmm.
Definitely a plus. Um, yeah, honestly, um, shockingly or not shockingly, our second teams were pretty close. Aside from me picking Jalen Brunson and you picking Steph, and I think that one is definitely a the arguable one
Yeah,
because both of
yeah,
them are really doing really good this season. Honestly, I could argue Steph on second team. Ultimately, I believe that I picked Jalen Brunson for second team simply because I just feel like he made like a really big jump this season.
he
Granted,
did.
like granted he was already really good last year, but like at last, he made the All Star, right?
Yeah,
Correct
he
me
did.
if
He this year was his
I
first
thought
All
so.
Star game.
Yeah. So like I feel like definitely that put him above the notch a little bit. And like him and Luca, man, they were a good duo. And it is unfortunate that they did get separated, but at the end of the day, I think it ended up being a win for both. I mean, now Jalen Brunson is the clear cut number one option with the Knicks, and Luca ended up getting Kyrie. So yeah, not that bad for both at the end of the day.
Yeah, the only like I feel like the biggest argument for Steph over Brunson is just because Steph is Steph. Like he's got that legacy, that history behind him. So I think voters will
Yeah,
keep that in mind and put him over Brunson. But Brunson deserves to be an All NBA player this season for sure.
yeah, I agree. And I feel like there's definitely that chance that voters are gonna pick Steph over Brunson for that very reason. We'll see what happens, and
Yeah.
I think it's arguable, but I feel like both of them for sure deserve to be All NBA.
Mm-hmm. And then let's talk about the
Yeah.
final team, the third team. Um, I feel like this is where I have a controversial pick, but
Okay.
we'll see if you agree whether or not it's controversial or not. So, I have Jalen Brunson, Tyrese Maxey, Tyrese Halliburton, as well. Kawhi and Domantas Sabonis to round things out. Um, I
Okay.
I have three guards, but I think this season is like the first season where it's positionless. So, um,
Oh, really? I
yeah,
actually didn't know that.
yeah. I try to keep it would feel like it's weird having five guards being in the same team.
Yeah.
So I did try to my best to have it kind of spread out evenly. But there's so many great guards that I ended up throwing three in third team, and then which was Brunson, Halliburton, and Maxi, and then I also
Yeah.
added Kawhi and Sabonis, who I feel like was disrespected during the All Star game because he was snubbed. I feel like he was definitely one of the best players in the league, even though the Kings did dip down from last season. Um, Sabonis has been an elite offensive player. He now has a record for the most double doubles in a season. He has the longest streak of all time as well for double doubles. So yeah, I ended up putting him in. I feel like that's uh, uh I feel like people would disagree with Sabonis being on the team, but I like the guy, so I'm putting him in.
For sure. And honestly, you mentioned a good list of players. My list is, for the most part, pretty similar, but a few differences. So for my team, I had Steph Curry, Tyrese Halliburton, Kawhi, Domantas Sabonis. I put Zion on the list also.
Zion, that's a
Um,
good pick.
yeah, I definitely had some consideration for Maxi also. At the end of the day, though, I just feel like if we were to compare the guards or whatnot, I believe that Steph definitely is better than Maxi.
Mm-hmm.
And then Battle of the Tyreses, I do think that Halliburton is better than Maxi, even though maybe that is a lot closer than some people may really think,
Yeah.
anticipate. I do think that Tyrese is better, so I ended up picking those two guys. And then I feel like not include Kawhi would have been hard, so I included Kawhi on the list. And then, as you mentioned, although it is positionless now, which I wasn't really aware, I tried my best to keep it the the five position, or at least not somewhat natural. So then I decided to put in Sabonis and Zion. Zion, another guy who has been hurt a lot recent years, but has been relatively healthy this year. Obviously, currently he's injured, but shout out to him for staying healthy for the most part. Um, I think that definitely these teams were challenging to make, in a sense. Like the first team was easy. I think second and third team was a little bit challenging deciding who should be on which, because all of these guys are really good players, so they were all clearly worthy of making the list.
Mm-hmm.
It was just a little bit tricky, like who should be ahead of who. Like one of the challenges I had in particular was KD and Kawhi, who should be second and who should be third. Ultimately, I picked KD on the second team because I feel like he's been slightly more impressive. Overall, though, I think it was pretty fun making those teams. I will say.
Yeah, and I wonder what the official teams are gonna be once they're released. But honestly, I don't think we did a bad job.
Yeah, honestly, pretty good. And for the most part, our teams were similar. I think that the only differences were a few of Steph versus Brunson, second and third, and then of course, you include Maxi, I include Zion, which are both good players. So we were pretty close for the most part.
Yeah. Okay, I think we can move on to all defensive team, which was
Yeah.
one of the hardest uh
Oh, this was challenging.
hardest things to do tonight. But
Yeah.
yeah, I got my first team ready. I got Rudy Gobert, Anthony Davis, Herbert Jones, Shea and Derek White in my first team.
Okay. Um, for me, I have some similarities and some differences. Um, I put Shea. Um, and then for the other guard, I had like a little bit of contemplation. But I ended up putting Jalen Suggs on first team. So let me just start
Underrated
over.
pick, honestly.
Yeah. So pretty much my first team is Jalen Suggs, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, Herb Jones, Wemby, and Rudy Gobert. Um, I thought about putting AD on first team for sure. It's just like, I mean, honestly, I wasn't really aware about the position listing. And quite honestly, now that I think about it, I feel like all three of those guys should arguably be on the first team. Wemby, Gobert, and AD.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
But I just wanted to like try to keep it like a little bit of like the like lineup wise
Same.
every position. So I decided to go with what I rolled with. And yeah, as we mentioned, this was quite challenging to make. Um, Maybe I will transition to my second team now. On my second team, I put Derek White, Kawhi Leonard, Jaden McDaniels, Anthony Davis, and Bam Adebayo. Um, Definitely some of these guys could be argued to being on the first team. Ultimately, I just feel like the guys that I listed were a little bit superior, so I put these guys on second team. I thought about putting Alex Caruso on second team, honestly, but then I felt like some of those other guards, like Derek White and Jalen Suggs, were too good not to be included.
Mm-hmm.
So, unfortunately, Carugo was one of the odd men out for me. But not to take anything away from him, he's one of the underrated defenders in the league.
Oh yeah, like
Um,
I have him on my list. Caruso
okay,
is one of my guards. As long as Suggs, I think he's definitely helped uh the Magic with their defensive presence. I also
definitely.
I have three centers the other for the rest. I have Wemby, Jared Allen, and Bam. Uh, they're all great defensive players for their respective teams. But I do like how you added Jaden McDaniels to your team. I think that's a good pick. Jonathan Isaac was someone that I kind of wanted to add, but ultimately I had to snub him off because there's a lot of great defensive players. So
Agreed.
yeah, that's my second team.
And I will say that Jared Allen is a guy that I would have also liked to have added. Part of the reason why I didn't add him is I don't know how I would have flexed like those three big men. Like for
Mm-hmm.
example, if I had AD, Bam, and Jarrett on the same team. I mean, I know they say it's positionless now, but yeah. Um, I feel like if I were to have added Jarrett Allen, maybe I would have taken off Kawhi to be honest. But I think that kind of like a substitutable like could be flipped between those types of players.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised he went with Kawhi. I mean, he is having a good season, but I don't think he's like in his defensive prime anymore.
Yeah, honestly, I kind of thought about not putting him, and if for whatever reason, I just went with my gut and put him. Honestly, now that I think about it, he hasn't really done like out of the world defense, but I think
Still a good
I
defender
partially
though.
put yeah, I think I partially put him on the list because of like his stardom,
Hmm.
but yeah,
I think that
arguable
plays a role as well.
yeah, honorable mention for sure. Jared Allen for me, as well as the Caruso.
Okay. I think that's it for all defense. To now, the very last thing we've got on the schedule is all rookie team. Um, Another tough team to go and try to
This is
come up.
hard.
I had to make some like last minute decisions, but I think
Me
I'm
too.
fine with my list. So I'll go first. And for first team, I got Brandon Podzemski. Is that how you say it? Pod.
Uh, I know his nickname is just Pods.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I got Keontae George from the Jazz. Chet, Brandon Miller, and obviously Wemby.
Okay, not bad. For me, I got Kason Wallace from OKC, and then after that, I got Brandon Miller, Jaime Jaquez, Victor Wembanyama, and Chet Holmgren.
I didn't even think about
So
Casey Wallace at all. He's not on my
honestly,
list. I forgot about him. Honestly, I'm sorry, Casey.
I yeah, it happens. Honestly, like I had a little bit of. I think I had the most difficulty with like picking the
The
guards.
guards were
Like
definitely
with
the weaker positions.
it was a weaker position because like their numbers weren't that impressive. I thought about putting Keontae George, but he was like kind of inconsistent. Same for Pods and maybe a little bit Kason also. Ultimately, I felt like Kason was the guy that like stood out a little bit more for me. But those, not to take anything away from those other guys, they were also really good. Um, I think I can mention my second team
Wait,
now.
can you remind me
For
who
my
was your second guard in first team?
oh, second guard was
You had
Brandon
Case.
Miller is a guard, right?
No, he's a big man.
Oh, oh, big man. So then it would be Jaime Jaquez, I think. Isn't he like a flex guard slash forward ish,
I don't
or
know.
could be? Yeah, I don't know. This might have been one where like it wasn't necessarily like. I mean, first off, if I were to
It's
include Wemby,
positionless, so you're. I feel like you're good.
yeah, because if I were to include Wemby and Chet, it's tricky who you would move to the four between those two. I would say if it were to be something like that, maybe Wemby four and actually no, I think maybe Chet four and Wemby
He did
five
start the
because Wemby
season
is so
playing
good.
power forward. Wemby.
Oh, he's more power forward, huh?
No, he started off power
Oh,
forward,
sorry, no.
but then
Yeah, I think
went back to center.
both of them are capable of playing both positions.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So definitely, and both of them can shoot threes, so like should be no problem for either of them if it came down to it. Yeah, I think that those would be that would be my first team, and then for my second team, I picked Keontae George, Pods, Scoot Henderson, Asar Thompson, and Derek Lively second.
Yeah, that was my last minute decision. I forgot about Derek Lively, but he's been awesome for the Mavs.
Yes,
So
then
he
yeah.
had to be on my second team. I also had Scoot. I added Cam Whitmore, Asar Thompson, and then Highway Hawkes makes this
Okay.
second team. And I ended up, I had to get rid of Amin Thompson to add Derek Lively, which kind of sucked. But I think you told me like he didn't play 65 games and he might not get it. I think that's what you told me. So I ended up cutting
Yeah.
him for Derek Lively instead.
I think that Scoot Henderson might have been in risk of maybe missing
Oh,
65
really?
games. Yeah, maybe, I think, but I'm not certain. So like I feel like I just like
Mm.
include him
Yeah,
honestly.
Scoot was
But
like I barely like was what's the word like I felt part of me didn't even want to put him in on the list because his season
yeah,
was so up and down. But
his season was a little bit up and down. And I know like some people kind of tried to like put the bus label on him, I think,
yeah, I won't call him
which
the
I wouldn't go
bus.
that far.
Yeah,
Yeah. But will say he has been underperforming a little bit.
mm-hmm.
I will say that I did think about putting Cam Whitmore on the list also. I don't know who I would have removed if I were to put him. Maybe Keontae George, but I feel like ultimately at the end of the day, I would pick Keontae over Cam.
Fair enough.
Hmm. But yeah, this was challenging, the rookie team,
Yeah, I don't.
especially the second team. I think.
It was all hard for me, honestly. I don't know if
Yeah,
it's a
honestly,
good list or not.
the teams were really hard. The individual awards were not as bad, I will say.
Hmm. But we got it done.
I think for
We did it.
yep, definitely. I think that individual awards, the hardest one would maybe be like I don't know, clutch player of the
Maybe
year
clutch
or
player. Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, we got the job done. This video was honestly quite fun trying to think outside the box. It was challenging, but it was fun because we really had to think creatively, like who we believe deserved which award.
Right.
And um, as we mentioned earlier, the season is winding down. We only got like about 1 week left in the season, huh? Like
I think
4 or 5
it's close to 2 weeks, but like,
2 weeks, I believe. Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, we have about 2 weeks left in the regular season, and then there's gonna be the play-in tournament, and then the playoffs after. So definitely will be very interesting. And then we also got some cool content planned for you guys. So definitely stay alert there.
should we
Um,
reveal what we're doing next week?
um, I think we could if you want.
Yeah,
You want to do it?
we're planning on doing an awards show. We're gonna have some fun awards that we're gonna make up to basically wrap up the NBA season. We'll have like the clutchest shot of the year award or the best poster of the year award, and some like meaner ones, I guess. Since I'm kind of a hater, I gotta put some hate out there. So maybe like worst player of the year award, most disappointing, stuff like that. I think it would be fun. We're gonna work on our list and the awards, the nominees throughout this week, so we can have that ready for you all next week, and that'll wrap things up before we get into play in and playoffs, where that's like all we're covering. Uh, just talking about good playoff basketball, which is exciting.
Definitely. So that's going to be fun. This episode was fun. The playoffs are going to be fun. Definitely a lot of excitement as the NBA season winds down and playoffs obviously always the high intensity times. Especially right now, the end of the season, as competitive as the Western Conference is, like these standings could shift drastically.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, right now, the fifth seed to the 10th seed are like not that far apart. I mean, Avs more than likely will be the fifth seed. Aside from that, though, like 6 through 10 is kind of up in the air right now. So we will see what happens. It should be quite interesting.
That's why you guys should subscribe, follow the podcast. What are you doing? Do it now. Follow all of our socials as well. Um, I'm kind of active on Twitter, a little bit active on TikTok. So if you're interested in that, it's all in the comments or in the description down below. But yeah, subscribe, follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Give us a 5-star ratings there. And I think that's it for the podcast. Anything you want to say before we go?
Just want to shout out all viewers. Thank you guys for watching our content on YouTube, listening to our podcast on all our other platforms. Um, greatly appreciate greatly appreciate you guys for all the love and support. As mentioned earlier, this is just the beginning. We got plenty more to come, and we're all really excited for both what's to come for our channel as well as the rest of the NBA season. So definitely make sure you guys subscribe and stay tuned.
All right, but yeah, stay tuned. I hope you all enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you guys next week. Later. Bye bye.